Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Friday with the Family. My name is Julia Bimbrook, and we have a very special guest today, a voice that we all know and love, Dave Hunziker. And Dave is joining us on his birthday. So thank you so much for taking the time. We want to wish you a very happy birthday from all of OSU and the Alumni Association, especially.
Well, thank you. At my age, you're just glad you're still upright, really. And so losing a lot of hair, as you can see in the camera, no reason to disguise it. So the years are catching up, but we've got football to look forward to a week later than we expected, but that's okay. In 2020, if we've got a chance, it's a good thing. So we're going to keep rolling along.
Absolutely. Well, before we get started with questions, I do want to remind everyone that if you are using the ALC webinar service, you can use the Ask a Question button. And then if you're watching on Facebook, just put your questions in there. They will filter some of those to me, and we will get them to Dave. I know that we're all wishing that we were getting ready for our first football game. So this will be the next best thing, kind of getting in that spirit for when it does come around. So Dave, tell us kind of when you first got started. You've been calling plays on radio and for OSU. What got you into that in the first place?
Well, I always sort of had an interest in it, even when I was a little, pretty young, going back to probably, 9, 10 years old. And the first job I had, I worked part-time at a radio station next town over. I grew up in Northeast Missouri, and all the county seats are about 25 miles apart. It's kind of funny how it works, at least in that part of the world. And as a senior in high school, I was asked to help out with a game broadcast and chime in, and that went well. And they asked me to do some reports on our high school basketball team, and that went well for about 2 weeks. And then they said, well, we have a Sunday night radio show playing oldies. We need somebody to do it. Would you like to do it and help out doing some high school games and so forth? And so that was in 1983. And it was a part-time job, but I worked at that same radio station, KMEM in Memphis, Missouri, summers and Christmas breaks, doing everything, sports, news, DJing shows, pretty much anything they asked me to do. And I knew before then I wanted to do it, and finished up at the University of Missouri and had my first sports job at the radio station in Columbia, KFRU, that carried Missouri's games and did pre and post game, and been very fortunate. Went to Radford in Virginia for 8 years, Western Kentucky for 1, and this is year 20 here. So I've been pretty fortunate that things have worked out the way they have.
And so then what has this time looked like for you? It's been weird for everybody, but the sports world especially. I mean, getting ready for these games, having them postponed, just kind of step us through what it's been like.
Well, it started with the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City, beating Iowa State in a tremendous game. Isaac Likely going length of the floor and hitting a layup to win the game by 1. But even as I went to bed that night, back in mid-March, I had a feeling we had trouble the next day as far as playing. I couldn't go to sleep. I stayed up late, just kind of hanging out and watching SportsCenter, and I thought, you know what? I just have this feeling we're not playing tomorrow. I think this thing might be in trouble, because that, of course, the night we beat Iowa State was the same night that the incident happened in Oklahoma City with the Jazz and Thunder being postponed. And I kind of thought, we're in trouble here. And sure enough, go to the arena, games were still on. But by the time I got my equipment in the Sprint Center down to floor level, we could see the Texas basketball managers picking up their stuff and leaving the arena. They were supposed to play Texas Tech, and found out that the game had been canceled. So no TV baseball, which I missed terribly. No postseason basketball. My summers are pretty slow, but not like this. So
Right.
It was pretty bizarre, but we had my daughter home, my youngest from Florida State, for 6 weeks. She's a junior there now. So that was great. We had more meals together as a family, because my oldest daughter's in grad school at Northeastern State in Muskogee in their occupational therapy program. And so she kind of is here at the house, and she's an OSU grad. She has her degree from OSU, but we had more meals as a family in that 6 weeks together than we probably had in the previous 6 years. I'm not joking. It was every night like everybody else. And there were card games at night and bocce ball games when the weather got warm out in the back. And yeah, it was challenging, but it was good to have that family time. I think I get so busy like everyone with all the things we have to do in that to-do list, and games here and games there and games everywhere. And I love doing that. But this was also a time where, under weird circumstances, I kind of got reminded, like a lot of people, okay, let's be reminded of what's really important. And that's family and friends, and a lot of those at OSU and tons of those at OSU. So pretty fortunate that, it was, I hated missing baseball, but I got through it okay. A lot better than a lot of people as far as mentally, and I didn't lose a job or anything like that. So I did fine.
And I assume that those game nights in the Hunziker household are pretty competitive. Do you have a favorite that you really get into these days?
Oh, I don't know if anyone still plays the card game Tripoli. It's basically a combination. If you haven't, it's old school. It's a combination of gin rummy, poker, and hearts.
Okay.
And, my daughter's boyfriend is on the women's basketball staff, my oldest. And so you get he and I in the room, and he thinks he's the king of Tripoli. And he kind of has been, which is annoying. And then my daughter gets fired up. My wife can get a little competitive. So yeah, it gets a little juiced up. I mean, we use poker chips, but the wrong person says the wrong thing, there's a couple of those could go flying across the room. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. So yeah, it was a little competitive, and there was some pretty strong mouthing back and forth, especially as the boyfriend started winning on a regular basis. So yeah, then we all try to
play the cards right. Yeah.
I know. A lot of luck involved, but it's fun. We enjoy playing that game. That's something we started probably 10 years ago on a Christmas night, and we'll play it on vacation. It's just, you have to think enough to pay attention, but it's not something that requires a lot of thought.
Well, and then calling games at OSU, I mean, there are a lot of you guys that take on different facets of game day, since there's a lot going on. And we were talking before we went live about how you guys are kind of quarantining in different ways or staying away from each other. Touch on that a little bit, and the importance of making sure you guys are good to go.
Yeah, everybody's going to think I'm nuts, but one thing that I think is important, anyone that is working through this in any job, I mean, you're in constant adjustment phase, but if you're managing something, I think you have to plan for every possible scenario that you can think of. And you can't think of everything in this brand new COVID world, but you try to think of everything that you can. And one thing that occurred to me in late July is, as a crew, and the core crew is 4 of us, John Holcomb, Robert Allen, Britt Lockhart, our producer engineer, and myself. We will not have our spotter, Eddie Neuendorf, this year. Clint Shelf and Dion Amati will be involved in pregame only. Adam Hildebrandt, one of our great OSU grads, we will not do the pregame from the casino. So we are going as bare bones as possible, just because we think in a small booth, that's just the wise way to go, and limit the amount of interaction everyone is having with anyone else. So it'll be 4 people plus Dion and Clint. So pretty bare bones. But, one thing that I thought about, going back to my point, is if we're all together and we get exposed at the same time to COVID, we have to quarantine. Then who does the game the next week? You don't have anybody. I mean, we would have backups, but our core crew would all be down. So Robert has gone physically to practice. Coach Gundy has put the video on practice, so I can watch. And I'm kind of staying in my own little bubble. I mean, I get out some and go to the golf course and, go to Walmart, and I might run into the store and run out, and I might have dinner out if I can sit outside, or maybe we have a room to ourselves. But, outside of that, I'm kind of staying away. I don't go down to Gallagher. I don't go to the football offices. We're doing all that remotely, but just because I'm the one person, and this is not meant in any pompous way, but I can do a game by myself and do everything. And I'm the one person that can do that in the crew. So, Robert will never step foot in the broadcast booth this year because he's in the team bubble. We're going to have complete separation. He'll do all his stuff from another booth or from the field. And so we'll have big plexiglass partitions to separate John and I and Britt Lockhart and I, but I'm kind of staying in my own bubble, trying to stay well and, keep out of this darn thing's way. And again, as much as anything, trying to avoid the darn quarantine. Of course, we don't want to get sick. I mean, nobody wants this. I mean, I know that for a fact, but you're also trying to avoid the quarantine because that shuts me down. And I don't want to be shut down, to be honest. But if I had to, obviously I would do it.
And so waiting another week on this kickoff, how did that feel, finding out that they had to postpone?
I had heard Sunday that I knew Tulsa had some issues with the virus. I'd heard Sunday that those problems were even more significant than what I realized. I thought by Sunday night, based on what I was hearing, we were going to be okay. But then Monday got the news we weren't playing. And honestly, Julia, in this scenario, you're just glad you still have a chance to play. And we had a mutual open date next weekend where we could reschedule. So I didn't look at it as the end of the world. I looked at it as, hey, I'm just glad we still have a chance. And we have a date that's convenient that we can reschedule to. And we'd only have to wait one more week and we'd still get a game in before conference play begins. My friend at TCU, Brian Estridge, was telling me yesterday, my colleague there, that SMU and TCU do not have a mutual date that they can make their game up that they've canceled for tonight. They might be able to do it December 12th. That's the only option that they have. So we're fortunate that we can go ahead and play next week. So, yeah, I was a little bit disappointed, but honestly just grateful that, hey, this can still work.
Right. So this is a two-part question. So okay. What does a normal game day look like for you? Step us through that. And then what is it going to look like when we do start playing this season?
Normally, a game day, I like to get to the stadium really early. So if we have a 2:30 kickoff, we're on the air at 12:30, and I might roll in there at 9:30 or 10 o'clock. And I'll turn on College Game Day. I'll usually bring my Bluetooth speaker, my Kicker Bluetooth, and put some music on because I love music. And I'll just sit there and listen to music and review my notes and make sure all of our elements for the pregame show are organized and watch College Game Day and just kind of chill and just clear my mind of any distractions because I want to make sure I have, utmost concentration once the game starts because it requires utmost concentration. Now this year, it's, and sometimes when I do that, I'll stop by tailgates and see people that I know and say hi and mess around. I love to do that. I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to roll in nearly as early. Gosh, for that first game against Tulsa, we kick off at 11. We're on the air at 9. I don't see myself there much before 8. And early games, you don't really, 6:30 be about the earliest I'd get there for that anyway, but it won't be the same. I mean, it'll be hour and 15 minutes before we go on the air now. Just, it's like my friend that does the Atlanta Falcons said, they're not going to roll in until literally they go on the air. And he said, it's just, if you're really trying to kind of mitigate risk, his point was, stay out of there as long as you can. So I won't be that extreme, but I won't go in as early, not quite as early.
And then I know you haven't been at practice, but you have been watching tapes. You've still been staying up with all that. Are there any players that stand out? Any surprises we should be looking out for as fans?
I don't know that he's a surprise, but Christian Holmes, who's the graduate transfer corner defensively from Missouri, has been a terrific addition. If you remember Tyler Patman coming from Kansas as a graduate transfer corner in 2013 and the impact he had on the defense then, he could have the same type impact. He looks like a pro. No one thought Tyler Patman was an NFL player when he came here. By the time he left, he was, and spent several years in the NFL and started for a period of time with the Dallas Cowboys. So I think Christian Holmes can have that kind of impact. He's got all the tools. He has the experience having played at Missouri. He's the guy that really jumps out to me as someone who was not on the field before for the Cowboys, but will make an immediate impact. I think he's, and the thing is, it's, he may not be the starter. He may be the third corner, but in the Big 12, you play extra defensive backs a lot anyway. So it's important to have as many corners as you can have, guys that can cover receivers, because you spend a lot of time on a game day chasing those guys around.
And so the season itself, how do you think OSU is going to do if we get to play all the games that we hope we will?
I'll be honest. I think they could win all of them. And here's it will be the craziest season, I think, in terms of results and outcomes that you've ever seen, because we're never going to know going into a game who's playing for each team, how much, what players are affected by Corona. There's always some mystery because there's always injuries. So I don't want to over dramatize that, but you could see a team that has 6-7 starters out. They may be playing their third string quarterback. You won't know until kickoff. It's not like the NFL where you have to report injuries. You may need to communicate, if you have enough guys to play, which is 53 in the Big 12. You can play with less than 53 if you choose, but if you go below 53, then you could have the option to, not play the game. But it's going to be different. You'll see some strange results, and you won't know really, at least for us, until the game kicks off for the opposing team, who's in, who's out. But I think they could win them all. I think that's very realistic. That's hard to do. I say they can win them all. Will they win them all? There's a lot of luck that goes into that, but I think they're capable of doing it.
Well, that's a good way to start with that mindset. So we'll take it.
Absolutely.
Well, outside of football, you do so much for the university. I don't know if everyone knows that you actually teach. You also are very, very involved with philanthropy. And I've seen you in action with Coaches versus Cancer, and you are so humble about all that you do. So I want to get in a brag from me as well. But tell me kind of what got you involved with the Coaches versus Cancer program and why that continues to be so important to you.
Well, I lost both my parents to cancer and my best friend from high school, and he was 40 and my dad was 54. So lost him pretty early, and mom at 65. So pretty young. And Kendria Cross approached me. She is the executive assistant to Ann Hargis, and she is the coordinator of the effort. And she approached me, I think it was in 2004 or 2003, and said, "Hey, would you be willing to help maybe as a spokesperson and just do a few things here and there?" And so I thought, absolutely. I would very much like to be involved in that. And that's how that started. And really my role in it was just to fill in some of the gaps when the coaches couldn't be involved, doing things at Swish Day and Swish Night, announcing as the cancer kids were shooting baskets to raise money and encouraging people to give money at those particular events. But Coach Sutton got that really rolling. And so my role was always and always has been, just trying to supplement and just things that the coaches can't do. Maybe I can jump in and help. And that's the way I look at it. And, one thing I've been really excited about is the Coaches versus Cancer golf tournament that has raised, I think, in the neighborhood of $600,000 over a 5-year run. And it's been a unique event with lots and lots of OSU celebrities, and we've had wonderful support. So that's been a lot of fun. And teaching, I've started teaching just one class. They know better than to let me teach more than that. But sports announcing, I've taught since 2007. So 14 years, I guess would be right. And it's been fun. I'm teaching virtually this year, which is weird, not really the best option, but it's forced me to probably be a little more organized and really do some things in class that maybe we haven't done before that we should have done. So it's not, even though it's virtual, I'm not so sure that in some ways it hasn't made me better. So you have to ask the students. Of course, I haven't done this before, so I forgot to publish the first assignment. So I think the students are in. It's what that group chat looks like. The students all get together, and when they have an online professor, they just dog him as this guy is an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. I'm sure I was part of one of those group chats. So I posted a lecture today. I said, look, I do not want to be that guy. I know I've already been that guy. I know it's happened. Don't feel bad. I screwed up. So I don't want to be that guy. So just communicate with me. And I told them, look, this is not an umbrella approach. This is a small class. You're in here because you want to be. It's a sports announcing class, so it's very hands-on. And you just say the word and we'll get together via Zoom. We'll work together so that you get what you need. And that's the way I approach it. So hopefully I've racked up some forgiveness, and maybe that group chat's gone from 19, all of them, maybe down to about 16.
There you go. There you go.
So we're making progress.
So do you teach them one thing? You have such a good voice for it. Did you learn a certain way to speak when you're on air, or is it just pretty natural for you?
You know, you're very nice to say that, but I'll be candid with you. Voice-wise, I'm very below average. I think I have to use all my other things to make it work. In fact, Tom Hedrick at the University of Kansas, it's hard to imagine a Jayhawk helping a Tiger, but I got laid off at my radio station in Columbia, Missouri, and I found a job immediately as a graduate assistant at an NAIA school, Columbia College, doing everything from taking out the trash to sports information to broadcasting the games to fundraising to making sure we had students take ticket money and sell soda, everything, and drove the bus. I loved it. I made $6,000, but it was a wonderful year, and I worked for a Hall of Fame coach, Bob Burchard, who's now in the NAIA Hall of Fame, as well as the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, as the AD and head coach. It was a wonderful experience. But when I was trying to get back into broadcasting, I went to see Tom Hedrick, who at that time was probably maybe the best play-by-play college teacher in America on a campus. And he said, look, we got to drop your voice at least an octave, and you're going to have to work on it. Otherwise, he said, you're just not going to make it. You'll make it, a job or two, and you'll never get where you want to go. So I really had to work at it to get the most out of the voice that I have, and then find other things to be good at. I know it's not, you think of, in our conference, there's some guys. I mean, Craig Way has an unbelievable voice. Wyatt Thompson at Kansas State has a phenomenal voice. Back Mike Kelly, a couple of broadcasters that used to be in the Big 12. Mike Kelly at Missouri, phenomenal voice. Mark Johnson at Colorado sounds like God. I introduced him as God to the football managers in the press box, the Alamo Bowl. Elevator pops up, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, God. And he says, oh, Dave, sound like that. And it was like, oh, everybody just died laughing. So that's it. It's what you get, MJ, for having such a great voice. He's one of my really good friends. But no, the thing for them is mainly just making sure that you speak from, and because you're a performer, Julia, so you'll get this. It's a lot like singing. It's breath control. It's really pushing the sound from below and not just relying on throat, because you'll kill your voice doing that. And so really using more like singing technique to kind of, and that'll help drop your voice and also save these vocal cords from just being torched. So you really have to kind of push from down low and speak so that people understand you, articulate, finish your sounds. And, and I think too is the game is just a story. I mean, there has to be some theater to all this. There has to be. Otherwise it's boring. I mean, if there's not a lot of theater to it, then you might as well just watch the scroll on ESPN and see what happened. You can do that nowadays. I mean, there's got to be some theater to it. It's a show. I mean, it's not fiction. It's nonfiction. It's what's happening, but it's a show. There's a reason they call it a show, as you've got to bring the game to life and put it into context and give it a little glitz without going over the top. So, they're taught that too. You've got to be able to turn the game into a story, and that means there's a beginning, the guts of the story, and the end. And you have to almost think like you're telling the story to a friend or to a little kid.
That's a very cool way to look at it. I had never thought about the game being a story, but that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just live.
Questions coming through.
Yeah.
And lots of people wishing you happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
In the comments. So Scott asked, how did you come up with your catchphrase, "Good night, Vienna, pistols firing"? Okay,
so pistols firing was just something I literally was. It was an audio spitball spitwad. I mean, I just threw it up and see if it would stick. I did it for fun, as an experiment. It wasn't the first game. It was the second game I did, Louisiana Tech. And I thought, well, we'll just try this and see what happens. Well, what bailed me out is, I don't know if it would have worked or not, but we beat Oklahoma the last game of my first year.
Ooh.
And, you might remember they were going to play for the national championship. It was in Norman. We were a 27-point underdog. We were 3-7 going into the game. We went down there and beat them. Well, pistols firing took off because we started winning football games at a rate consistently that Oklahoma State had never done before. So I think I could have said there's a rabid dog at 8th and Knobloch, touchdown Oklahoma State. They probably would have put that on T-shirts because I don't think it really, people were just so excited. It just sort of, the reason it went is because we had great coaches and players and we were just winning like crazy and beating Oklahoma and knocking them out of the national championship game 2 years in a row. The kind of stuff we hadn't done before. And I was blessed to be here starting my career when that happened, my Oklahoma State career. So I was very fortunate. Goodnight Vienna was something the guy in my hometown, Cahokia, Missouri of 2000, something that the guy was one of the managers at one of the gas stations. His name was Bubba Cannon. May he rest in peace. He died of cancer too a couple years ago. And he was kind of an eccentric fellow. And when something was over, he would say, "It's Goodnight Vienna, baby." I stole it from Bubba, and I think he was okay with it. So I'd been up home before we played Kansas in 2002 to do a speech at the church I grew up in. I went and hung out at the gas station with Bubba for a while like I did when I was a kid, and we got to yakking back and forth. And late in the game against Kansas, I just threw that out there for fun and decided, that's kind of fun. So, yeah.
And the rest is history.
I guess. Yeah. Scary as it is.
Well, Jessica asked, what is your most memorable sport that sports call you've been able to make?
Oh, it's really hard to top beating St. Joe's in 2004 to go to the Final Four. That's as good as it gets. And that team was so good. Went to the buzzer practically, really did actually. And, John Lucas hit that big 3-pointer at about the 7-second mark, and we dodged a bullet at the end from the All-American Jameer Nelson to win. So that's about as good as it gets. And then the 2 Bedlam wins. Those 2 years we were underdogs in 2001 and 2002 and managed to upset the Sooners. And, of course, if you had to pick a moment, Tyreek Hill and the punt return in 2014 is about as high dollar as it gets. And the fact that they punted a second time, all the elements that went into that it's foggy, it's rainy. You can hardly see the ball when it's punted. It was almost like a scene out of a movie. And then he runs it back. I mean, were you on Palm at that time?
I was there on the side.
I thought you probably were. Yeah, that was it was just surreal. I mean, and again, everything, the fog, the rain, the lights, you could hardly see. It was just, it was so cool.
I agree with that one. Joey asked, have you all thought about basketball season yet? And what will that look like from an announcer's perspective?
We have, and I'll tell you what, I give the basketball people, as far as the leadership, and Dave Gavitt, NCAA, a lot of credit. The one thing they said, and I don't think they meant necessarily to offend football, but the one thing they said publicly is, we are not going to get caught in the situation that football did, and that is assuming that everything will be fine by the time our sport begins. So they're talking about bubbles, possibly non-conference bubbles at various locations across the country, and possible conference bubbles as well, where you might even go off to Dallas and play 3 conference games and come home. So I don't know what that means. It may mean you don't play any games in your home arena. I suppose that's possible, as painful as that would be with the kind of excitement we have around our team. So I think all options are on the table. I don't think that that's guaranteed by any means, but for us, it'll be interesting if we end up in a situation where we're still in football and basketball begins and there's a bubble. Then I think that's probably almost a guarantee that we would do games remotely from Orange Power Studios with a video feed and audio, because I just don't think they would allow us to just kind of jump in and out of the basketball bubble, because it'll be pretty tight. So it would also depend on how they set up the announcers. Maybe we could go and do it and just be completely separated from all the players and coaches. That might be possible, as they've done in the NBA. But yeah, I've given that some thought. Basketball could be an entirely different animal. And for us, it may require us having to do the games either in Stillwater or at a location in an arena we would not ordinarily do them. So you have to plan for multiple scenarios and then just adjust.
And this is a tricky question because it's really not possible to take COVID-19 out of the equation. But if we were, and you're just looking at this exciting sports year, just on the basis of what we've had from the beginning, what would you say you're most looking forward to with these teams?
Ooh, I mean, football is just, you've got to back Chuba Hubbard that's got a great chance to win the Heisman. And by the way, he's looked phenomenal in practice. He's healthy. I think people know that he was only about 70% maximum last year because of injury. And by November, he was playing about 50%, and he still rushed for almost 2,100 yards, led the nation in rushing. Well, he's healthy, and he looks really, really fast. So that's fun. And the thing is, we're going to be loaded in a lot of sports. I mean, obviously with Cade Cunningham here and all the excitement around men's basketball, women's basketball is going to be very good. I know Vivian Gray is no longer with us, but holy cow, they still got some players. Terry Collins' daughter is a really good addition. She's going to be a good player, and I think Coach Littell is excited about their team. Wrestling has got everybody back. I know Chris Young likes his team. Tennis a lot. Softball is loaded. I spent a lot of time with Jay Uwadia, the men's tennis coach, this summer. He really likes his team. I mean, the golf team's got everybody back. I mean, we kind of had the puppy teams last year. We were young in just about every single sport. We were all reloading pretty much simultaneously. And now everybody's experienced. So it could be a huge year. Greg Robertson's done an awesome job with women's golf in his short time as coach. I had a feeling he would because he was tremendous at Kent State. As one of our OSU grads, he's back with us. So, yeah, it could be a banner year if we can get this darn virus out of the way.
There is so much to look forward to. So we're not quite done yet. We have a little surprise for your birthday, and then we'll come back with a few announcements. So thanks to the Alumni Association and Pocapella, we have a recorded birthday wish for you. So on behalf of all of us, have a fantastic birthday, Dave.
Oh my gosh.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dave. Happy birthday to you.
Wow, that's awesome. That'll never be topped. How about that? Right. Those people are so talented. I've had the chance to introduce them many times over the years, and they are fantastic. They went to Brooklyn. I think that's why we won. We played so well in Brooklyn at the tournament. We had Pocapella there. We had everybody on our side. People singing the national anthem, the whole 9 yards. Makes you play better.
Very
great. How thoughtful. Thank you.
Well, and then Scott Hudson also said he didn't have a question, but he had a comment and said that it was just refreshing to hear your voice. So I agree with that. It feels like we're back to have the voice of the Cowboys with us today. So before we go, we do have a few announcements for OSU athletics. Cowgirls soccer season opener against Oklahoma tonight has been postponed due to positive COVID-19 cases on OU's sideline. Stay tuned for updates on a rescheduled date for that. Cowboy football will host Tulsa next Saturday at 11 a.m. in Stillwater, like we talked about before. If you're not in the stands, you can watch at ESPN or ESPNU. You'll also want to check out the new digital game day features coming to you from the Alumni Association next week at orangeconnection.org/athletics. That's on the screen now if you want to screenshot it or take a picture. And the Orange Connection mobile app as well. Now you can watch all of our previous Friday with the Families at orangeconnection.org/webinars, along with many other educational videos. While you're browsing, be sure to check out the Alumni Association's new membership model and claim your credit toward a life membership. You can learn more at orangeconnection.org/life. So thank you so much for joining us today. As always, stay safe and wear orange. Dave, if you don't mind sending us out, I know that's what the people really want to hear. If you want to give us a classic Dave Hunziker.
Sure. the least I can do for you all inviting me into the family. Good night, Vienna. Pistols firing. Touchdown, Oklahoma State. 8 more days. 8 more days.